Thank you everyone for joining Raising the Roof, how Atlas, Kyro Builders, and CompanyCam are redefining contractor success. So today I have Stanley Bastek, VP and GM at Atlas Roofing, and I also have Robert Oliver, co-founder of Kyro Builders. So really excited to jump into sharing a little bit more about how Robert and Stan started working together and how Atlas complements Kyro Builders, as well as how CompanyCam also intersects in that entire relationship as well. So would love to kick it off. Stanley, before we dive in, can you share a little bit more about your role and your focus at Atlas? What are you working on today?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, great to be here. And Tyler, thanks for putting this together. Great to see you, Robert. Always great to get together with friends and talk shop. I'm in my current role, I'm overseeing our one of our four divisions at Atlas. We're a manufacturer of building materials. We make asphalt shingles for steep slope, manufacturing. That's where a lot of your audience knows us from. But we also make a couple different insulation materials, polyiso for commercial and really full building envelope, as well as molded polystyrene products, and then sort of high-end facer materials that go on all sorts of gypsum and other flooring applications. So I manage the sort of strategy and direction for our shingles steep slope business, and I've been with Atlas for 18 years. It's an incredible company. I'm so fortunate to have built a long career. When I see so many of my friends, in their career paths over the last 18 years, I don't think a single one of them spent their entire career at one place. But I think it's really indicative of the environment and the culture that Atlas has. It's a place that me and a lot of my counterparts have just wanted to stay, right? We built long-term lasting relationships, and it's been really fun. So we're working on building a new plant out in Iowa right now. That's probably taken the majority of me and my team's time, and just getting prepped for new capacity and pushing into new markets. But yeah, really excited to be here today, Tyler. So thanks so much for creating this opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolute vet, great organization, strong products, and what you're leading is super impactful. So great to hear that you've been there for that long and super excited for the Iowa plant. It's going
Yeah.
to be awesome. Robert, so being a co-founder at Kyro Builders, can you share a little bit more about being an owner? What does your day-to-day look like? And tell us a little bit more about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, like Stan said, thanks Tyler and team for putting this together. And like Stan said, it's just great to see everybody and kind of catch up and really cherish the long relationships we've had with both Atlas and Company Cam. Um, so back in really 2014 is when Kyle and I, so for those that don't know, Kyro is just a play on Kyle and Robert. We're not that creative, so that was the best we could do at the time. But we met through the fire department, and he was on, we were at different stations, but we were on the same shift and started becoming friends. Kyle was doing a lot of construction on his off-duty days, and so was I. And basically, we got started as, hey, come help me with a job. He'd ask me, I'd ask him, and eventually we said, hey, we ought to probably actual official business out of this. So Kyro was officially born in 2014, and it was literally just the two of us swinging hammers, putting roofs on, just the two of us. As we grew, word of mouth, friends and family, of course, the fire department network is really a strong foundation to build off of. We started to add some people to our team, started, having to take on bigger jobs and needing some more help. And we've kind of, just snowballed in a good way over the last basically almost, coming up on 12 years. And so my role has definitely changed, as has Kyle's. So over this time, I still like to pride myself. I still have my tool belt and my toolbox on my truck, just in case. Those are some of my best days when I can still hop up and do a quick repair or something like that. But obviously, um, it has become more of a managerial type task. Just the growth of the company. We're now rolling full-time roofing crews every single day. So we're putting on basically 20 roofs a week, which is kind of incredible from a little over a decade ago, where Kyle and I were doing every single roof, just the two of us. And those took significantly longer when it was just the two of us. But it's been a really fun journey. Obviously, more like Stan said, more of the strategy, the overall, some of the 10,000 foot view stuff, and less days with the tool belt on. But super proud of our team. That's really what's gotten us to where we are today, is just by bringing on great folks and having great relationships. Like I said, just like with the relationships we have with you and with Atlas. So it's been a good ride, and looking forward to the future. So
It's
I
awesome.
love it. I like how you shared journey, right? It's all about
yeah.
the journey. And I know that Stan's got being with Atlas for so long, a vet, there's a lot of journey that he can share about that. And I'm excited for us to talk about that in more detail today. Robert, when we talk about, you specifically being in the firefighter industry, like how is that translating into how you run your business today?
Well, the fire department is, it operates as a paramilitary organization. So we pride ourselves on structure. There's a lot of accountability. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of camaraderie, and just really good, solid relationships. I think most folks that find themselves, whether it's military or first responder, kind of have that gene where they consider themselves a problem solver or a helper. And I think that really sums up at the core who Kyle and I are. And the kind of the team that we've built around us is, we've taken what is traditionally one of the uh, least trusted professions, construction, with roofing perhaps leading that based on a lot of studies, and coupled that with one of the most trusted um, career fields, which is, public safety, firefighters. And so I like to think they kind of help balance each other out. But we literally, anyone on our team will tell you whether there's someone that's come from public safety or outside, perhaps, lifelong, construction industry folks that we have on our team will tell you that foundationally, or a lot of the elements of our organization are based off of that paramilitary foundation of, like I said, the accountability, the communication, the always trying to leave people better than we find them. And so we approach each job more of a problem solving mentality than looking at it as an in and out sale, if that makes sense. And I like to think it's working because we actually don't really advertise. So you're not going to see us on TV or hear us on the radio. Over 90% of our jobs are word of mouth. And so I think by kind of, having that trust factor and trying to take care of people and put their problem, if they call us, hey, my roof is leaking. Okay, that's your problem. And we're going to help you solve that. It may be a repair, it may be a new roof, it may be that it's not even the roof. It might be your HVAC system. That's the condensation. We just help, we get in there, we try to be low pressure, try to do the right thing, and meet people where they are and solve the problem. And I like to think it's worked out well for us.
Yeah.
I love that. The problem solving mentality that you shared, I think impact and also trust. And when I think trust, I think Atlas. And so, Stan, I've got a good question for you. At Atlas, I understand, working with us, working in the technology space, with your partners from an executive standpoint, while supporting your contractors, not only from a product quality standpoint, you're also putting a big emphasis on the tech partner enablement as well. Can you highlight why that's important today and specifically at Atlas?
Yeah, I think that I would say the core underlying factor is technology is a very fast-paced, fast-moving, area of everybody's business, right? And so it can be very difficult to understand where to go next and what to be doing, right? If I try to put myself in your shoes, Robert, right? Like you got a lot to manage, right? Running a business is a big undertaking, and so I think that sometimes we're a big manufacturer, right, big company, but we're small, right, in scale relative to some of our competitors, and we've had to kind of figure things out at times, right, a little bit of that, put on a lot of hats, and take a grassroots approach to doing things differently with a much lower budget and a much leaner staff than maybe our competitors have, for example. And so I think that background, that mindset at Atlas has helped us really try to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers and say, hey, if technology is intimidating to us, I can only imagine how intimidating it must be to some of our contractors who are worried about payroll, worried about keeping crews, on jobs, keeping people safe, making sure that you stay compliant, that you got your insurance requirements taken care of, that your material orders are showing up on time. Like there's a lot. And then, oh, by the way, you got to collect, to balance your cash flow. Like there's a lot going on. So one of the core things we really decided, 10 plus years ago was, hey, we want to go out and build relationships with, really reputable companies that are entering our space and trying to find the same people we're already talking to, which is that contractor, that independent business owner that's trying to figure out what do I do next. And again, we try not to be exclusive, but we try to say, hey, who can we go out there and say these are folks solving real problems that our contractors are going to respond to and going to want to listen to. And we don't push it on anybody and say, hey, you got to use this. It's really about providing access and exposure and a little bit of that. Hey, we'll do a little bit of that pre-vetting work so that hey, what are the benefits of using a CompanyCam, for example? Um, I think the other big thing is there was a trend probably about 10 years ago where a lot of manufacturers were building out technology platforms that were sort of closed platforms. And we really realized early on that that was not a route we wanted to take because what we also saw was a lot of contractors use multiple products, right? And so to put all your eggs into a manufacturer's technology platform basket didn't seem like a good business decision from our perspective. So that's again why we went out and said, hey, we're not a technology company, we're a manufacturer, right? So some of that was also staying in our lane, but just developing really good relationships that our contractors could go tap into. So I think that really is the driving factor behind it. That's our guiding forces. We just want to have really good partnerships and relationships that our contractors will say, hey, when I got a question about, hey, financing, or when I have a question about CRM platforms, or I have a question about, quoting software, like who are those people that you guys know and trust? And that's really what we've done over the last many years.
I love that. When you shared access and exposure, it just took me to a lot of the events that we participated with you this year. And it really allowed us to, have those good conversations with those contractors, bringing multiple vendors together, but also contractors all over the US. So it allows us to have those conversations, be able, for me and our team, to take back those conversations and our findings to our product team to share how we are working directly with your contractors. And it's been really, really impactful. And so that ecosystem that you're creating from a tech standpoint, also the relationship standpoint, is definitely top notch. So that's been really, really great. Robert, I do have a question really around navigating that growth. How has Atlas helped you navigate your business?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways, and and Stan kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's been really impactful for our business to have that relationship and to be able to have the support from Atlas, from our local sales rep all the way up, through the whole team, Stan included, all the support, the trainings, the events, all the things that we've done over the last decade together. Everything just kind of helps build that team, that relationship, because it's a two-way street. Obviously, um, Atlas wants us to install their product, and we love installing their product. But, we also has to solve problems together. COVID was probably one of the biggest times we worked so closely together, making sure our jobs were covered and we had the material for the projects that were sold. And, when's the next truck of underlayment coming in? And, there were so many hurdles over the last decade. And being able to have that relationship and know those folks on the other end of the phone or the other end of the email really set us apart from our relationships that we had with other manufacturers and other product lines, siding and windows and things like that. We didn't have nearly the support that we've had with Atlas. So the relationship is critical. The other side of that is, and some of what y'all are mentioning as far as that kind of that world that Atlas has created through their website is known as the Pro Portal. And that's something we've put a lot of stock in over the years. Obviously, we're on there register warranties and upload invoices and things like that. But there's a lot of other resources there. And that's what actually, back in 2019, as were adding crews and really, at that point we were 5 years in, and we happened to see on the pro portal CompanyCam. And there was a little article there about how, if you're not using CompanyCam, you're missing out as far as, record keeping and documentation. And at that point, we had already, started to put a lot of faith, a lot of stock into some of the strategic partners that Atlas had brought in because we had already had good experiences. We had started, using some of the finance partners, and we had gotten onboarded with AccuLynx as our CRM, which was a relationship that Atlas kind of bridged that. So we already had a lot of good successes. And so then when we saw CompanyCam, we said, well, this is a real problem. As we've grown, we really need a way to keep up with, it used to be where I was on every single job because there were only a few jobs a week. And then now we're doing, 10 plus job sites a day. And so you can't be everywhere at one time. So to be able to do that. So there was a real problem there. And literally it was a matter of logging in and seeing that, hey, there's a relationship here, help with onboarding. There was a little bit of discount at the time, I believe, for being an Atlas Pro with CompanyCam. And so we said, why not? And we gave it a shot, and the rest is history. So yeah, it's been really, like I said, the strategic partnerships, the support from the top all the way down to boots on the ground here in our local market. It's just been phenomenal support. And we just had a lot of great successes together. I'm really thankful for that.
That's amazing. One thing I do want to dive deeper into when we were working on the case study, one thing that you really highlighted was the impact and relationship that you've received from Atlas, comparable to other manufacturers. Can you share a little bit more about what that experience has been like and how they're completely different in terms of that relationship side?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the proof is really in the pudding. The fact that, Stan and I are on a first name basis and have been for years. I can't think of many other manufacturers where I have that kind of relationship. And everybody in between. I've spent a lot of time over the years with the folks on the Atlas team that are in the business development side. Our local sales rep, our regional rep, all of those folks have been folks that we've interacted with well for many years. Again, every time we've had a question or an issue, or hey, can we try this, or hey, we need to do that, we've always had responsive, what we call in the fire department, we want to give everybody responsive and caring service. It's hard to find that with a lot of manufacturers, and that's something that Atlas has done well for us, is to provide that responsive and caring service. Probably the first time I went to the Hampton, Georgia facility and got to tour R&D and go through, we were just so blown away. It just really upped our knowledge of shingles, and like I said, going to the R&D center. So having those opportunities, having that interaction, we're walking through, we're seeing folks on forklifts and, lugging shingles around the factory, and they treated us like family. And, they didn't have to do that. From the folks leading the tour, everybody involved, everyone we've ever interacted with at Atlas has treated us more like family versus being a customer. And that's something that's, for those that have interacted with other manufacturers or other product categories out there, it's kind of rare to see that. And so yeah, it's been great.
I love that. I love that. And, knowledge, being able to get to the R&D center. Stan, this philosophy around, being family oriented and having that deep relationship with your contractors, where does this come from? Like, can you share a little bit more about this?
Yeah, I mean, I love to hear that, Robert. Sometimes you wonder, how things translate outside the organization, and we get a lot of, affirmation and confirmation that, some of the things we're doing works and it's meaningful, and that means the world, right? I'll kind of relate it to a couple things. You sort of asked, well, where does this come from?
Mm.
It's sort of a collective cultural decision that keeps getting made every day, right, by everybody, right? And I think it's rooted in the fact that we're we still really view ourselves as a small family business from Meridian, Mississippi, right? And we're a much bigger company than when we were founded in 1982, but we're still privately held. We're very proud of that. We're proud of the flexibility and the agility that that provides us. And I think that, more to that, we have a lot of tenure, right? A lot of people stay a long time at Atlas. So, for our local partners, like Robert, and then our distribution partners as well, they know who we are, right? Because we have a lot of longevity, right? Our sales managers have been around a long, long time. Our sales reps have been around a long time. At the end of the day, our reputation is only as good as the people that are picking up the phone when Robert calls, right? And so our local rep and region manager, right, they're the first line of defense in how we are viewed and what our reputation is. And so what we really try to emphasize when we hire people into Atlas is, hey, you're entering a place with a high expectation of living up to this culture of responsiveness, right? And so it's great to hear that that translates. The other thing I would tell you, I love to hear you talk about what your experience was going into the plant and R&D facility, because I can tell you our operations team views Robert Kyro as the lifeblood of what we get to do. In fact, there's signs in our plants that say customers are the reason we exist, right? It's part of our internal care program. And so that becomes sort of a guiding principle for everything that we do at that plant, right? And so that's not something we really have as like a public facing advertisement, but it's like our inside our operations facilities, our customer service teams, our shipping departments. We want everybody's first experience with our product to be really good, but we want their lasting experience to be really good. And so that matters to the person that's driving the fork truck or manning the manufacturing line and everything in between. It's not a promise that we're always going to be perfect, because I'm sure Robert could even tell you, like we do have issues, right? It's a grueling thing that we're trying to make if you think about it. Somebody once told me, who came in from outside our industry, that if you were going to design a product to just absolutely eat up equipment, you would have designed an asphalt shingle, because you're taking black, sticky, hot asphalt and rock and sand and glass, and you're putting it through this machine and trying to make an asphalt shingle, and you're putting it on a roof, for somebody with this expectation that this thing is going to last for a really long time and it never gets a break from the weather, right? I mean, I love what we do. I love what we make, but it's a really tough thing to make, right? And so when we have issues, though, really the back to the sort of the comment you made, Robert, proof is in the pudding. It's how we deal with those things, right? Whether that be a quality issue with our shingle, whether that be, hey, you know what, like your portal wasn't working right, I can't get this warranty for my customer, like, or hey, I have this idea, like this would be better if you did this or this, like how we respond to that feedback, I think is much more important than anything else we do. So that's probably, again, back to that, cultural side is, we want to be responsive, empathetic, and understanding, and we want to make the best decisions we can for our customers, because customers are the reason we exist.
That's big. Super, super impactful. What stood out to me was the internal care program, like absolute game changer, and how it goes from, the CS team, the experience from product all the way to distribution to the contractor to homeowner. It's that full cycle, and it does start, to your point, at the beginning. And so you guys do a wonderful job with that entire roadmap. So definitely, definitely appreciate that. And I'm glad that we're able to share that with our listeners today. Robert, I do have a question, a little bit more about gaps, right? Filling gaps. So before using CompanyCam, what was that experience like? What did your operations look like? Can you share a little bit more about that?
A lot of gaps. Yeah, so I mean, and I think most contractors, most of my friends that are either in this industry or, we always say, every fireman has a side job. So we have we're friends, we work alongside in the fire department, painters and plumbers, electricians, and you name it. And so and everybody has those same struggles with documentation. And we always say, if it wasn't documented, it never happened.
Mhm.
And what we've done over the years, with roofing especially, there's things you come across. You got to strip this roof. And then you got to get a new roof on it before weather comes in. You got to get it dried in. And with that, one of the biggest problems we had was documenting the amount of roof decking.
Mhm.
Whether it was one by or plywood or, OSB, you name it. Um, it happens really, really quickly. And oftentimes the homeowner, maybe they're at work or they can't be on the roof. And so you're having to come to them at the end of the job and justify perhaps some additional charges for those unforeseen things. And it made for some really interesting and kind of awkward and difficult conversations when you say, "Hey, we had to replace 10 sheets of plywood." And they go, "Oh, okay, well, can you show me? Do you have any pictures?" And then, you say, "Hey, yeah, one of my guys, one of my installers, he has the pictures on his phone." And then meanwhile, he's dropped his phone, and now those pictures are gone, and all the other pictures he had, or maybe he didn't want to take pictures because he was out of memory, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
And so those were things that were happening literally on a daily basis. Not to mention as we grew. And we started adding project managers and things like that to keep the ball rolling days when we were on duty at the firehouse. So then there's no way we're going to be on those particular jobs, but we want to have a good way of kind of tracking the progress, keep an eye on the quality and doing all of those things. So CompanyCam it was the tool that we identified at the time as, hey, this is going to fill in those gaps. This is going to give us that documentation that we need. So when there is a question about, change orders or, hey, was that crack in the driveway, was that there before we pulled the dumpster onto it? Or, because a lot of people don't notice, you'd be surprised, they don't necessarily notice every little detail about their house until somebody's been there to do some work. And then if you're the last one there, everything is, hey, was this you? And so again, just multiple different ways. That CompanyCam has helped us fill those gaps. So whether we're off-site, maybe we're on another job, maybe we're at the firehouse, making sure because it's not, because it's stored in a cloud versus on, people's own devices. If the phone falls off the roof, falls in a puddle, you name it, all of those photos, all that documentation is still stored. And then, as we've grown, so has CompanyCam, and that's been exciting because from the time that we started using CompanyCam, now there's checklists, and now there's, the ability to receive payments and video mode, and there's just all these really cool features. And every time something comes out, we kind of have a little breakout session in the office, and we say, well, all right, how can we implement this new feature? What problem is this going to solve? And so it's been really cool to kind of grow alongside each other. And it's been just, like I said, super impactful on filling in those gaps for sure.
That's awesome. And I know that what stuck out was to me, it sounds like there's a lot of importance around communication and transparency. So, for example, the cracked driveway, right? I feel like, that's a question I'd like to ask is more around how Company Cam has helped you communicate with homeowners, right? Before, during, after a job. What does that look like for your contractors that are working through that?
Yeah, so from the moment we take that first appointment, so literally our team is trained when they get out of their vehicle, when they're there for the sales appointment, start taking pictures. Um, it helps us on the estimating side as we're building out that proposal for them. We're documenting, okay, they've got a ton of penetrations on this roof, or oh wow, they've got a lot of skylights. So having those eyes and recording that on the front end, and then just capturing, how much landscape, what's the complexity of this job, what's our access, can we, um, you know, all of those logistical hurdles by having all that information from the sales team on the front end. That way, when we show up, what a lot of our production team likes to do is when they see that job on the schedule for tomorrow, they're
Mhm.
going to then pull up their phone and start looking at the gallery of photos that are associated with that job to kind of prep themselves. So when they're not walking in blind, they know, oh, you know what, we're going to need some extra tarps on this one because of all the vast landscaping in the front yard, or, we're
Mhm.
going to have to make sure we cover that pool that's really close to the back of the house, or And so it helps us identify things on the front end, lets us be more efficient, and again helps that communication flow because a picture's worth a thousand words. So rather than jumping on a phone call and having to brief every crew and every project manager on every nuance, they can really see for themselves and focus on what's important. We can also go in if we have a picture of something, we say, hey, we want to call this out. The editing tools on CompanyCam, the ability to add to highlight something, add some words, put a message on there, tag certain team members in there. If there's something we really want to make sure we don't miss this detail, we'll use the editing tool, adds what we need to add to that photo, and then tag the project manager who may be going on that job the next day, just to call out their attention to it. So that's been super efficient, super helpful for us. And then just with the homeowners, like you said, it's full transparency. We want to do everything very openly and honestly. Um, but not every homeowner is going to be able to get up on the roof and look over our shoulder. In fact, it's really not safe for them to do that. And so, but by the average roof job, we'll probably have 400 to 500 photos in CompanyCam,
Wow.
which is pretty impressive from start to finish. And what we can do is we show them pictures of every single piece of roof decking. We show them every little piece of detail, all the new flashings, before, during, and after. And we have no problem turning those over because we want to show them what we did and we're proud of it. But it's really great because they're geotagged for location, they're time stamped, and we can't edit any of that. And so if there ever has been a dispute, we can say, hey, look, this it's not like this was a picture that we doctored up or anything like that. This is, you know, so if it ever has to, go into a negative direction, we're really covered. And so, and again, just the before the average person has a few, these aren't new homes we're putting re-roofs on, right? These are older homes. There are the cracks in the concrete. There are scuffs on the siding. These are lived in real places. And so we have to document all that because at the end of the day, sometimes we have to prove that that wasn't us, that was there. And so really when you zoom out and look at it, it's hard to put an exact number on it, but easily with our volume, I think CompanyCam saves us, I would say, a couple $100,000 a year. Um, in I won't say claims, but in things that we could have been blamed for, but with the documentation that we have, we're able to say, hey, this was like this before, or hey, let me walk you through why we had to do these change orders, and so we have way less change orders getting kicked back and things like that. So it really financially, um, I mean, it's such a great return on our investment. We're really, really happy with everything with that.
That's big. That's really big. And one thing that really stood out as well is when we were working through the case study, callbacks, like, contractors having to go back for, not having the best documentation initially. Uh, Earlier on, when in the early days, could you share a little bit more about that and how that does, add a lot of time and how CompanyCam has been able to help with that process for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyone on our team that fields that phone call, whether it's the sales rep or the project manager or our team in the office, we're all able to pull up CompanyCam. We're all looking at the same information. Everything's documented. So no matter how that potential callback comes in, we can see very clearly what's going on and give folks the answers that they need. Um, especially early on because you just didn't have a good way of sharing all that information. And so by having it and the whole team has access to it, and just like I said, being able to show a homeowner, hey, if it was us, we definitely want to make the situation right. But as you'll see here in the photo, this was like this, or let me show you what we came across. It's just yeah, across the board, having documentation, again, it's a picture is worth a thousand words. And again, it's hard to put a dollar value on it, but it's certainly saved us a lot of money and a lot of headaches over the years. So
Well, we enjoy and we'll continue to support you on that and learn. We're still learning as we're both growing. All of us are growing. And so, really excited about that. So,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that with our listeners. Stan, all right, manufacturing side, your perspective. How common are these documentation gaps that you see with contractors? And why does this matter so much for Atlas as well?
Yeah, I think it's a very common issue that we see. I think that's one of the things that initially attracted me so much to CompanyCam, before it even had some of the really robust features that it has today. You know, I still on a regular basis will be out talking to contractors and they'll want to show me something like, "Hey, let me show you this great install." And they get in the Photos app on their phone and then they just start like doom scrolling through to find that picture that they're like so excited and proud. Like that to me, like I love simple things, you know what I mean? Like what we're talking about here is like really how this is impacting your business in such a positive way, but like I got hooked with the most simple thing, which was like, oh my God, like you should have all of your photos because these are all project photos. Like contractors and installers, they've just got thousands and thousands of pictures on their phone from all time. And so
Mhm.
like I think one of the first demos I did with Luke, way back in the day, he's just like, check this out, right? And he pulls a map up and he's like, taps on a house, an address, and it showed you all those organized photos of like before, during, and after pictures. And I was like, it's such a no-brainer, right, for project management. And it was also a no-brainer because it wasn't trying to be something that it wasn't, right? It
Mhm.
was like, this isn't some full blown CRM. It's just saying, hey, look, like this is about doing some things really, really well and addressing. And I think over the years, what you all have done to evolve is you've listened to your customers, like Robert, and said, hey, here are all the other challenges that we're seeing and having. And that's where you've been able to adapt it. I think documentation is one of those things that helps you in all facets of the job. So I think that's the other thing that, I've heard over the years. Some people really view this as a way to sell, right? Right. Robert, you said, hey, at the end of the day, like, it's not safe for me to bring Mrs. Smith up on the roof with me, right? But you say a picture's worth a thousand words, right? You're trying to provide enough insight to somebody to make a decision at the end of the day. And if you provide that insight with pictures as opposed to just a written estimate and a description of what you saw, you're much more likely to make a sale, right? So I think that's really an important aspect of this is using it through the selling process as well. And selling slash consultation process. Because another thing I picked up on, Robert, that you talked about that I think is why, we're so attracted to companies like yours is, we're looking for people who are consulting, not just out there trying to sell a roof at no at all costs, right? Like sometimes that's not the right solution. Sometimes it's a repair. Sometimes it's any number of different ways to address a homeowner's issue. But then I think the during phase, right? It's making sure that you can see, hey, that your team is accountable for the things that are in your contract, right? I think that's really important for you to hold your subs accountable, for you to hold your project managers accountable. And then in the after part, it's really, there's so many things that happen after the fact, right? It's really about documentation for marketing, right? Which I think is really important, showing those before and after pictures. But also that documentation in the event that you have a disagreement with the homeowner about something that came up. And unfortunately, that's just part of business, right? That's going to come up. But I do think it can be very disarming if you say, "Hey, look, I'm sorry that you've got this issue that you're experiencing this crack in your driveway, but I did want to show you these pictures from before and after, and this was here before we were there. We certainly want to take responsibility for anything that was our fault, but we know pretty confidently this wasn't." That's very disarming, right? And it's not just a gotcha, right? It's showing somebody that, hey, this is how much we care about your house, and care about our reputation is that, we documented all of this. So I think, there's so many ways to use an application like this, and I think that's what makes it so special.
That's big, bringing the care and focus from the contractor standpoint, but then it also comes back to the standpoint of your product as well, Stan, right? And another thing that really that I was listening to when you were sharing was you connecting with Luke and how at Company Cam we're not trying to do everything, but we're focusing on the right things and listening to our customers. And so, when you're working through, working with tech partners and identifying them, what makes you find that confidence in Company Cam to be able to share Company Cam to your contractors like Kyro that help them run a really strong, smooth operation?
Yeah, we've swung and missed on a few, right? Like, and again, like that's part of the deal, right? But I think that we really like to do business with people that we like, right? I mean, I will say that's like a big part of it, like we like to connect with people that seem like they have, hey, good, ethical standards, but also just they're energetic and fun and thinking about how to make our industry better, right? So I think when you have that mindset of progress and progression and problem solving, I think
Mhm.
those are really fun people to work with, right? And so I think that runs the entire gamut for us, whether it's how do we evaluate a vendor partner or how do we evaluate whether a contractor, we would be a good fit for. At the end of the day, we're trying to earn, people's business all the time. And sometimes we determine we may not be the best fit for each other. You know what I mean? And so I think that's part of the process we try to train our reps on is that hey, like we have to do business with people the way they want to, be done business with, but we also have to make sure that we're setting them and us up for success, right? So you got to have those honest conversations about like what does success look like, right? Like let's talk about when we run into the brick wall. What are our mutual expectations? Let's talk about, how we are going to sort of co-market together, all those different things. So a roundabout way of answering your questions, the way we evaluate, a vendor technology partner is really not a lot different than how we evaluate, distribution partners or manufacturing partners. It's, we want to do business with people that appreciate the relationship side, but also have high ethical standards and really are all about progress and moving the ball forward, right? This is an industry that for a really long time, I've been in it almost 20 years now, was sort of a laggard in technology. And now it seems like we're starting to push the envelope and being more on the cutting edge of things, which I think that's a direct result of so much, sort of turnover in our space. And contractors, now have a high expectation of us as a manufacturer that we are going to have access to these tools. And so, again, I think that it's kind of changed. Our sales reps, when we hire a new rep today, they have an expectation that we have a robust tech stack, right? So that's so different than, I can remember, yeah, when I first started, they didn't even give me an Atlas email address at the start, right? It was like, yeah, just make like, Bastek roofing at hotmail.com. That'll work for a while. Like, I mean, it seems crazy, but we were way behind as an industry for a long time, and we've caught up, certainly caught up, and now we're starting to push that cutting edge. And I think you see that in so many different areas, which I think is just, it's super fun to be a part of, right? So we just want to find people that want to be innovating.
That's big. That's really big. And for fast-growing companies like Kyro, what parts of the Atlas Pro Plus program are contractors able to be supported in, whether it's training, marketing, warranties, business support? Can you really like shine light on that?
Yeah, so really, like everything you said across the board, um, the Pro Portal is a very helpful tool, and it's just a good one-stop shop for kind of everything that we need as it pertains to roofing, really. So the partners there, again, that's how we came across CompanyCam, several other partners. It's a great interface to, if we need more material, like sales material, literature, warranty supports all in one place. I can pull a copy of your warranty of a roof I did 10 years ago. It's all there. Um, a really cool tool that's on there that's been innovative. We can pull up a map on the Pro Portal and see every install that we've done on a map, which is really impactful. As well as if folks want to see, hey, what are some, we're looking at this particular color. Let's just say it's um, majestic shape, for example, something that
Mhm.
you really need to see on an actual full roof to understand that color. I can go right into our Pro Portal and then look at all the jobs that we've done that are majestic shake, and then pull up some addresses. Let's just say like in the neighborhood or around town that they can ride by and take a look at, which is a really cool feature. So there's so many different things and it's always, as Stan said, the technology is evolving, and where it used to be a little more, basic, I think over a decade ago, almost every time you log in, there's a new feature, there's the new technology. This past year, they've uh, streamline the way in which we're able to upload warranties with using some AI technology. So we're able to just kind of dump a bunch of invoices, PDFs from our supplier in there, and it reads all the information off of those invoices and basically gets the warranty submission like 95% complete. We just kind of review it and hit enter. So that streamlined the process there. So again, from top to bottom, it's just been the technology and that the collaboration through the Pro Portal and different partners. Everything there is all been optimized to make our business easier and more efficient. And that's how you can grow. It just increases your bandwidth, and then we grow and we grow together. So.
That's great. And so from what you shared, Robert, it's truly realized impactful, the program. So Stan, to our listeners for the Atlas Pro program, how is it evolving and meeting the needs of contractors? How do you see that scaling? And can you share a little bit more for
Yeah.
contractors who may not be familiar with your program?
Yeah, table stakes are we have to make a good product that is bringing value for, Robert in the home, right? Like, like at the end of the day, like a consumer, a homeowner is buying a contractor. They're not buying a manufacturer, right? They're buying into, hey, here's the person locally that's going to install my roof and I'm going to feel really good at about, and so we really feel fundamentally that's really an important thing that we want to reinforce. So some of the ways we're trying to reinforce that are through partnerships with, the homes program and bringing the, things like that into it with videos and things like that. But what I would say from a technology perspective is the portal is a lot of different things, right? But most people have to use it because, like Robert said, like, hey, I want to register my warranties. I want to have that permanent record. I want to be able to have that record of all my jobs. That we think is fundamentally important. Hey, there's rewards programs and loyalty programs, and there's a way for them to order all the things they want. But where I see this going is really speed and accuracy, right? Like
Mm.
we are in an age now where the speed with which people expect things to happen and expect access to their data and their information is unprecedented, right? And so we're working on building out AI agents right now so that Robert, right now we spend so much time organizing this portal, making sure the buttons are in the right place and the things people use are always at the top, blah blah blah. I just envision like a blank screen and it's almost like, hey, what are you here for today, Robert? And you're telling an agent, and it's going to learn so much over time to get you right to what you need without having to click 3 times or 4 times or whatever. So I think it's heading that way really fast. We're looking at, really trying to get specific AI agents tapped into the databases that are trusted vetted data that we manage so that we can give that access to information to our contractors and to our sales reps quicker so they can make quicker decisions and streamline their day, right? So at the end of the day, I think the future is all about speed and efficiency. So you're going to start to see, you're seeing it in everything, right? You're seeing it everywhere you go. There's agents popping up that are trying to provide you, information and prompts to get you to the information you need quickly. And in some ways, that can be a little overwhelming. But I think that what we've got to do is we've just got to continue to lean into that evolution of technology to get people in and out quicker, right? We used to pride ourselves in how long we got somebody to spend on our site. Like it was a real metric where we'd be like, time on site, it went from 8 minutes to 10 minutes, right? Like now that's a negative, right? So I feel like the dynamic of technology is just constantly evolving. And so the things that used to be important, like how deep did we get them versus, oh no, actually I need them to be able to get in and get out so they can go back out and have more time in their day to go sell more roofs, right? Like it's crazy how things have sort of almost completely switched in terms of what the focus and attention is. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely it does. And it's clear the evolution is definitely exciting and it's focusing to your point, speed and accuracy. And I mean, I'm pumped up. AI agents, oh my goodness. Like I know that if I'm pumped up, contractors are pumped up, Robert's pumped up. So we're definitely looking forward to that as well.
The most I've used AI up to this point is just like turning pictures of myself and my kids into Legos. So I'm like, there's got to be more to it than this, man.
We got to start somewhere. We got to start somewhere. Oh, this is all great. There's going to be a poll that's going to, if you want to learn a little bit more about CompanyCam and how to level up your business, like Robert, and there's also going to be an opportunity to connect with Stan's team as well. Learn a little bit more about the Atlas Pro Plus program. Get involved, ask questions to learn how you can better improve your business and knock it out of the park. And there's also a case study that was shared in the chat. So, with that said, thank you, Robert. Thank you, Stan. This has been great. I'm definitely looking forward. We need to do this again, but let's do it at the end of 2026 to see how far we've come. I think it'll be really interesting. So, I appreciate you both for joining and being able to speak to our listeners today.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Stan. It's great to see everybody. I'm glad to be a part of it. Hopefully it's helpful to some of the folks out there.
Yep, absolutely, guys. You guys enjoy the holiday and great catching up with you both.
Happy holidays, guys. See you
Yeah.
both.